Awesome, welcome back. It's been about a year since I've done these videos, and today I want to zoom in, focus on one of those videos, and take a deep dive. This is actually inspired by a conversation that I had with Fried last week, where we spoke about this idea of the augmented Jewish world, Jewish history, Jewish universe. And so what I want to do is I want to pluck that video from a year ago. I believe this video was from day 14. It was titled Augmented History or Augmented Jewish History. And I want to kind of zoom out, give a basic background, and then go in and look at some more scenarios. And together, maybe you'll be able to see some. First of all, go back and watch that video. Highly recommend that. And then come back here, watch these ones. And hopefully with some more scenarios, we'll be able to kind of see some ideas, see some possibilities that a couple years ago, or even today, seem like fantasy, seem like something that's impossible. And I think in a couple years, this will actually be the way that we'll be interacting and learning our Jewish history. So first, I want to go into the meaning, the differences between virtual reality and augmented reality. I'm going to be talking about them a lot. If you know any of my content, or if you've met me or see any of the videos that I produce, you know that I do a lot with augmented reality. If you want to know the difference, so pause that for a second. Virtual reality, that's probably what most of you have heard about. That's the idea of, you've probably seen those bulky goggles. You put them on and you leave this world, leave this reality, and you immerse yourself into a virtual reality. It can be a fantastical universe that has unlimited potential. Usually it's focused around like entertainment and games, and is quite amazing in what you can do with it. So we're gonna showcase areas that we're gonna use virtual reality. And we have augmented reality on the other side. Augmented reality is the idea that you're inside this reality, you're still in this world. So you may be walking down the street, you may be sitting on a bus or in a rowboat in the middle of a lake. You're in this reality, you see the people around you, you see what's happening, but you have a digital layer of information, of really anything that's augmented on top of the world. So it can be anything from a 3D model of maybe an animal inside the room, like maybe you'd have a real life lion, living, breathing, that you can see, touch. It could be like a model of a building. Maybe you have a building that maybe you're an architect, you have a 3D model of that building standing here. You can maybe zoom out, you can see the couple neighbors near you, see what sunlight can do to, see how your impact of your building can have on those other buildings around you, see the shadows, things like that. Or you could have furniture, so you can see how a couch or a bookshelf could look like in your living room, in your space. A lot of people, so what devices do you kind of use for this? Most people will use a phone or an iPad nowadays. Those are the most accessible. Those are the things that millions of us have in our pockets. And you can take that out, and through the iPhone, you can see the augmented world through that. What we're building towards, and a lot of this video, I'm looking through the lens of this, is the ideas of having a pair of glasses, so hands-free, your hands are able to interact, you're walking around the world as you would normal, but you have a pair of glasses that through those lenses, you're able to see, you're able to visit this augmented world that's laid out in front of you. All the scenarios that I talk about in this video, is more geared towards that future that is coming, that is through these glasses. So hands-free, as if you're walking around. You don't have a phone that you're pulling out of your pocket, that you're interacting with a screen like that. Okay, so briefly what we're going to do is what's this idea? First we're going to go to the idea, and then we're going to zoom out and look at that initial first idea that sparked all this. Imagine a universe that is completely constructed from every single piece of information that we have in the Jewish world, Jewish history. So anything from the Bible to the Talmud to Halakha, Tanya, Kabbalah, biographies, interviews, family trees, any kernel, any piece of information, imagine all that getting sucked up into this world that you can traverse through time and space. You can visit any point of time in history at any place and be able to see, immerse, experience what's going on. And you can also interact. So these characters will embody, they will have an AI that contains all the history, all that information of that character, that you'll be able to actually have a free-flowing conversation, not just one that's like pre-programmed. So we're definitely going to get back into that, and we're going to go really deep. But I want to quickly pull back and just look at what the idea that was started about 10, 15 years ago, where this all sprouted from. So the initial idea, which I would still love to see, and is something that slowly, as we get more and more content and videos and podcasts in the Jewish world, and more versions of Sfarim get released, we're slowly getting there, but we haven't got there yet. So what's this idea? Imagine if you have a Talmud in front of you. Nowadays, if you wanted to get different explanations, translations, transliterations, ways of interacting with it, you would buy different books or you'd log onto different websites. Everything's very separate. Imagine opening up the Talmud and using augmented reality, the text in front of you can have a floating or augmented information. So let me paint the picture. So you open up the Talmud right now. Let's say you open up an art scroll. On the second page, you've got translation. If you want to change that, you would need to buy a different book. With augmented reality, you can actually have overlaid that different translation that appears that it's actually printed on the paper. So we're not talking about like a little holographic screen that's projected around you. We're talking about literally goes with a bend of the paper, looks like it's written on the actual paper of the book. That translation, that digital translation, can automatically change from English to Spanish to Russian to English to Hebrew, whatever it is. The explanations can come from various sources. Imagine being able to scroll through that. So let's say on an art scroll, you have a page that has like a little scroll bar, and you have many pages of explanation for one page of Hebrew text. So here, because through augmented reality, your second page, that's your translation, can actually now become digital content that you can scroll through on the page that's there, and you're scrolling through the translations, everything like that. You could have the translation or transliteration word by word on the actual text of the Talmud. You could maybe have your notes, a layer of your notes that you can turn on, scribble, on the page in digital format, and you can turn on, turn off your notes. You can filter them different ways. One thing that I remember learning the Talmud as you start, it doesn't have, let's say, punctuality. You have to learn how to learn the text, right? So the text can be split into questions, answers, something coming from the Mishnah versus the Gemara. So imagine if you could have a highlight that appears on the actual text that explains to you, okay, these couple lines are questions, these couple lines now is a statement, now we're moving into the Gemara. So all these different aids that can help you learn are augmented over the actual physical pages of the book, of the Sefer that you're learning. And maybe you watched a video or a podcast and you can pin that to different words. So as you come down to them, you could have those videos on the side that you can reference. So that was that first idea. Still would love to see that happen. From there, as I started getting more involved in augmented reality and the idea of universes and complete worlds that we can craft, it became, instead of reading text, imagine if I could actually dive into that scenario and be there. So you're reading text, pointing towards something, you're in the middle of a discussion that's happening in class, and you can imagine a wormhole sucks you into the pages. And when you open your eyes, you're in the classroom of 1,000 years ago. And the students that you were just reading about are sitting next to you. The teacher's there up in the front. And you hear the discussion going on. But not only do you hear the discussion and you can see what's happening, you actually can interact with it. You can become part of that discussion. So maybe you cheated and you read a couple lines later or a couple pages later, and you saw a question that you like. So in this virtual reality, in this scenario in the classroom, you raise your hand and you ask that question. And maybe that rabbi or that student that asked that question later on actually turns to you. He goes, that's I've been thinking about that. That's an interesting question. This is, I would probably answer this way. And you can actually be part of that discussion and see where they're up to. And maybe using augmented reality in the virtual world, you can actually have items or holograms that help explain what's happening. Maybe the teacher has like some sort of whiteboard or something that helps understand what's going on. Maybe after class, you go, and just like today's lecture, you go and can have a conversation with that rabbi. And remember that this rabbi has all the information in his avatar. So when you're talking with this character, it's not like a pre-scripted movie that has a line. He's got all the information, so you can have that conversation with him, and all that rabbi's, that sage's opinions, outlooks, character comes through in that conversation, and you can have that discussion. Next step, we're going to get into AR, but I'm going to leave that for the next video, so we'll see you in the future.